we ever going to infuse the political discourse with spirituality? Let's ask that bloke from The Office. Hello there, you 6.4 million wonders. Thanks for joining me on this voyage towards truth and awakening. We are going to have to become spiritually robust. We are going to have to become mentally astute. We're going to have to become physically well. We're going to have to take care of ourselves in order to confront the challenges ahead of us. Turn on the notification bell right now and subscribe to our channel. We make these videos every single goddamn day, even if it grinds us into a sort of powder made of pure misery. We're going to keep going because we love you, we work for you, and we believe in the mighty power of the limitless Lord and its ability to change our lives. That's why I spoke to Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office, fantastic actor, thinker, orator, peculiar fella. You can see where he came up with the character of Dwight from. He's an unusual dude. He was talking to me about his book Soul Boom and how he believes that spirituality and politics can and must fuse. He used his experience from his own faith to tell me how a personal moral system of principles and values can change the world, that we have to learn to speak to one another in good faith. It's a fantastic conversation. Stay all the way to the end and let me know in the comments, what questions should I have asked? So, Rainn, this conversation will be formulated around a number of things. Okay. Ultimately, what we want to explore is you and your unique brilliance. I want to talk about the new book that you've written. I know it's the first conversation that you've had about your book, and I'm very excited.
I'm a little scared. I'm a little nervy about it. So I brought my book because I was driving here and put it on auto drive, and then I was like, wait, what did I say here again? So
it seems dangerous.
It was dangerous. Yeah, I risked life and limb.
Just to be here. The book is called Soul Boom, and even in that title, I'm able to evaluate that likely you approach the subject of spirituality with a kind of congeniality and accessibility, because I suppose spirituality has come to be regarded as either esoteric or divisive or phatic and imitative. Part of the challenge, I think, of, let's call them for the sake of simplicity, New Age takes on spirituality is they sometimes feel traditionalist, rootless, individualistic and selfish. What is it about the Baha'i faith and the manner of discussion of spirituality in your book Soul Boom that prevents it from being just another tool to help us fit in with systemic thinking and just individualism?
That is such a perfectly formulated question. I can't even believe it. And you're so fucking articulate.
Thanks.
You make me sick.
And, I made it up. I made the question up.
I know. You just write it. That hits it exactly on the head. So again, essentially my thesis is that in humanity's current distaste for organized religion, we have thrown the spiritual baby out with the kind of religious bathwater. So at the center of all great religious thought are a couple of key essential points that humanity has lost track of. And these are some essential elements of any spiritual tradition, universal spiritual tradition. It doesn't matter, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, that humanity needs to move forward because we're on the verge of destruction. So you talk a lot about revolution in the book, and the subtitle on your pod and online, and the subtitle of the book is like why we need a spiritual revolution. And you've been a great inspiration to me over the years. And I watch all of your stuff. I've listened to so many of your interviews, and I feel like we're kindred spirits. Me perhaps in a somewhat smaller, gentler way, i.e. my narcissism is not quite as unchecked as yours.
I'm not checking mine.
Good.
I didn't even know it was there.
Let it fly.
I don't even know really what you mean. I was looking at my reflection while you were saying that and thinking, soon I'm going to say some things that are going to be really brilliant. This noise coming from this man will soon stop and it'll be back to where things are meant to be.
I will be able to hold forth. But in all seriousness, because you posit your arguments, your beliefs, your discussions around this idea that we need to not just tweak extremely broken systems. We need to rethink the entire system itself. And so my thesis is that we can do that, and we need to do that by using spiritual tools. Maybe a little bit more than, I hate to say political tools, because politics is really about the balance of power. So really good, solid spiritual tools will correct the balance of power, but not through partisanship.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to it than that.
That sounds like a beautiful and necessary and important book. I was thinking in a way, Rainn, that politics is functional, rudimentary, and about organization and logistics. At least it ought be, but you need to underwrite your vision with some sort of ideology. And even in a secular culture, you still require recourse to ideas that legitimize the direction that you as a political movement, or one as a political individual, is claiming to be the correct direction for the society that you're claiming the right to organize. Who is in our house? Because there shouldn't be anybody upstairs. I'm the only person here. My children are out. That was like a heavy-footed individual.
It's Fauci.
That's Fauci. He's up there. He's claiming royalties for something he probably never even come up with himself. Yeah. Fauci! Get down from there. You're time wasting. And I think it's interesting that you say that the tools that are required are spiritual ones. I agree with you entirely, because materialism and rationalism, I think, have taken us as far as they can take us. Like, this is the way we can organize our resources on this planet if we extract ourselves from our true nature. All of us know that within us there's the sensation of the body, there's the awareness of the thoughts, but there is something else which you might regard as your spirit. Your spirit requires nurture and direction. And when I try to organize my own life simply around logistics, relationships, objectives, I come unstuck pretty quick. That's where I found spirituality. Was your introduction to a spiritual way of life similarly desperate, or how did you find your path spiritually, Rainn?
Well, you said so many really beautiful things there. I just want to point out one thing that you said, which is our spiritual reality. And you introduced me, and you're like, "This is Rainn Wilson," and it's true. This is the body I'm currently inhabiting. I spent 57 years in it so far. Maybe I'll hit 90, maybe 95 if I'm lucky. I really don't know. I don't have any control over that. But this isn't me. So what is my reality is that I'm a spiritual being inhabiting a human body for a very limited period of time. So for me, I grew up a member of the Baha'i faith. My parents were Baha'i. The Baha'i faith is a very beautiful religion. I'm not here to convert anyone, but I do want to say that the central ideas are about unity and building community at the grassroots and being of service to one another. So, and those elements, like I said earlier, are universalities that belong in every spiritual tradition and every religious tradition. If you dig deep enough, if you look at their source, if you look at what Jesus actually did and not kind of what rose up in Jesus's name hundreds of years thereafter. So I grew up a member of the Baha'i faith. It was a beautiful faith tradition. I needed to leave it because, much like yourself, I wanted to go explore the wide, wonderful world of drugs and alcohol and sex in New York City when I was 20 years old and went off to acting school. So we share that as well. I loved your recovery book too. I'm in recovery myself, and a very important part of my spiritual journey comes from that 12-step tradition. And so I left the Baha'i faith. I jettisoned everything and anything having to do with spirituality. It seemed old-fashioned, fuddy-duddy, limiting, moralistic, and just not relevant to my daily life. And then as I got more and more depressed and dealt with alcoholism, depression, what we call mental health issues now, but in the 90s, we didn't have words for it. I was just fucked up. I was just generally fucked up and really unhappy. Even though I was working as an actor, I had a beautiful girlfriend, now my wife. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Why am I so unhappy? And that led me on a spiritual journey. Ultimately, I went back to the Baha'i faith. But during that time, which I'm really grateful for, where I was very lost, I was very hurting, I had a lot of pain. There were times when I felt suicidal, deeply suicidal. I got to explore all the religious faiths of the world. Maybe not all. I'm sure there's some, pygmy religions that I didn't get to study. But I read the Bhagavad Gita, and I read the writings of the Buddha. I read the Quran and the Bible, and I went on a many year soul searching for personal meaning, and that led me ultimately back to the Baha'i faith. And I decided that was my spiritual path. And those kind of ideas, what I found along the way, have inspired Soul Boom.
The world is not enough may be the title of a James Bond movie, but it is also true. The world is not enough. I find that your story resonates with me in a number of ways, and is perhaps to a degree archetypal, that laying at your feet in early life were a set of spiritual tools that were, for whatever reason, inaccessible to you, and then after suffering and exploration, you find your way back to that grail, as it's often.
Very Jungian.
Yeah, that's sort of like a really useful way, I think, to look at it, isn't it? To sort of find that, there are coordinates that are recognizable, particularly when we live in a culture that seems to be about identitarianism and divisiveness.
Yes.
Not that people don't have the obvious right to celebrate their individuality and express it in the myriad ways that one might, but that it's important to acknowledge, I believe at least, the kind of universality in the same way that we might accept that we all have skeletons, that there are certain psychic archetypes that we are all able to access. And me and all, Rainn, it was like desperation that sort of made me consider a different way of life. And to be honest, it still is like that. I venture into the world thinking maybe this is the thing that will make me happy, some little task that I can fulfill or not fulfill. And then when it doesn't work, inevitably, I return to this point of acceptance, because as a 12-step person, I know you must be aware that the principal message, as well as aligning with the broad paradigm that exists in the triangle of service and unity and community, there is also the idea of total surrender. And because 12 steps and people that come to it via addiction are ordinarily dealing with crisis, a particular crisis, the crisis of addiction, most obviously, I wonder if it's understood that what that new folk religion is telling you is that yourself, your identity, your whole persona is temporary, and that's not what you can't organize your life around that successfully. You have to live absolutely in the service of a higher idea. And I think it's impossible to mobilize that resource in a human being without some kind of without a spiritual conversation and without spiritual principles. People are they, after the last century, going to rally for socialism or free market capitalism or fascism ultimately? Only in so much as those things allude to either unity or prosperity or solidarity. There's nothing there in material. Like, as is true physically, it's mostly space between the molecules, between the occasional nodes of apparently only present when observed phenomena. It's mostly nothing.
Yeah.
It's mostly nothing. So I wonder how you reconcile your life as an individual, as you've taken, like, you're meant to be doing a film right now, as I understand. It's only some sort of serendipity that means that you can trundle up here and that you're not on your movie right now. How do you reconcile your requirements as an actor, as a father, as a husband, as an author, with this knowledge that, as you said a moment ago, really you're not here at all?
Again, beautifully said. So one of the chapters in the book, I talk about two of my favorite television shows from the 1970s, which was Kung Fu and Star Trek. So, and I use these as analogies of our spiritual journey. So Kung Fu, for those millennials and Gen Z folks that haven't seen it, is about this guy, Kwai Chang Caine, very racistly played by David Carradine, who, although the concept was invented by Bruce Lee, it should have been an actual Chinese person, but he's Chinese or half Chinese. He grew up in a Shaolin monastery fighting Kung Fu, and he goes to the Old West looking for his brother. Every episode is about a spiritual journey. So Kwai Chang Caine is seeking to bring his Eastern wisdom and perspective to these rough and tumble racist cowboys that he bumps up against in every episode. And then it ends with a flurry of kicks and fist fights and whatnot. And I use that as an analogy of our personal spiritual journey. So that's our meditation, our going out into the world, seeking to be kinder, seeking to be wiser, to be more compassionate, to cultivate those divine spiritual qualities that we all have inside of us. Some qualities more than others. And that's part of our journey. The Star Trek side of it is that humanity itself is on a spiritual journey. And one of the things that we've thrown out is the possibility that we need to think of ourselves as global citizens, as world citizens, as human citizens, rather, that we are all 7 billion of us inhabiting this planet. And how do we move forward? And how do we help make the world a better place? How do we solve racism? How do we solve income inequality? How do we solve these essential questions? Because they're not going to be solvable, Russell, through politics.
No.
It doesn't matter what candidate. We can get Biden out of there. We can get Trump out of there. We'll get, I remember back in the day when Barack Obama was elected, all of my liberal secular friends were like, oh my God, thank God racism has been solved. Barack Obama is the president. And in a lot of ways, he was a very good president. In a lot of ways, it was just business as usual. And a lot of big business and a lot of drone strikes, illegal drone strikes, and a lot of monitoring, and it was just the same old. And racism actually spiked and got worse after he was. So the system itself is broken. So when we talk about the spiritual journey, that you talked about New Ageism earlier, and it's something that really rankles me because there is an essential selfishness at the center of kind of a New Age, treacly, a spiritual path, which is like, I like this yoga class, I like this crystal, I like this meditation app, I like this Instagram of the day, this Rumi quote that hangs on my wall, and this makes me feel peace, and this makes me feel serenity, and I'm going to leave it at that. No, peace, personal peace and serenity is important. A yoga class is important. Meditation, a nice Rumi quote, those are all important. But if it stops there, it's narcissism. If it stops there, it's self-serving. So how do we take this dance between the Kung Fu and the Star Trek, this dance between our personal spiritual journey, and then we take that out into the world? We're of service to others. We seek to heal, to transform, to build community at the grassroots. Again, it doesn't really matter who. If Russell,
yes,
listen to me.
I was listening anyway.
I know you were listening. You were rapt. Listen. Our entire system, both political and economic, is based on the worst aspects of humanity. It's based on contest, competition, and aggression, and one-upsmanship, and individuality. They're all based on that. That's how capitalism is based. And that's how partisan politics is also based. So as long as we're in that system, we're headed toward a self-destructive end. We're headed towards climate disaster and all kinds of, I talk about all the different global pandemics in the book besides COVID. But, racism, materialism, you mentioned, there's so many other, nationalism, militarism. These are all the real global pandemics. But if we want to really cure them, if we want to address them, we have to go to the roots. So, and the roots of that is our personal transformation as a I'm sorry to go back to this stupid analogy, but going back to our inner Kwai Chang Caine, and then how do we spread that in the world? How do we build something new? Because if we just keep protesting, it's not going to lead to anything. And we're in a culture of protest right now, where we see injustice, we're like, injustice! And we see a terrible politician, we're like, that politician sucks! And we see this terrible bill that's been passed, like, this legislation is terrible. What are we building?
Well, did you enjoy that conversation? What a fantastic man he is. What a great thinker. These are the kind of conversations we need, don't we? We can't just continually grind ourselves down with endless political discourse. We have to have fun, don't we? Laughs, jokes, tricks. Let me know in the comment who you want to see me talk to. We'll reach out to them. We'll find them. Teen Wolf? Do you think I should get Teen Wolf? How about him? Or Patrick Dempsey? It could be anybody. Let me know in the comments in the chat. Rainn Wilson's book is available everywhere from the 25th of April. You should read it. It's fantastic. I love you. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. Turn on the notification bell. More important than any of that is that you please stay free.